welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly spectacular. We're going to unpack a fascinating piece of cultural artwork, literally decoding a masterpiece where devotion meets language. If you're the kind of person who loves discovering the hidden underlying structures behind ancient traditions, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it. Think about this for a second. What happens when ancient poetry perfectly mirrors divine art? I mean, usually we look at a beautiful painting or read a powerful poem and we treat them as two totally separate things, right? But what if one was the literal blueprint for the other? Today, we're looking at a singular, breathtaking image that brings an ancient Sanskrit invocation completely to life. It's honestly an incredible experience to see exactly how the visual and textual pieces of our source material intertwine so perfectly. Okay, let's dive into section 1, the goddess in gold, stepping into the radiant imagery. Just take a second to really absorb the immediate, captivating impact of this artwork. This is the Goddess Saraswati, framed in this incredibly golden, ethereal landscape. Let your eyes kind of wander over the warmth of the lighting here. Notice that elaborate, glowing halo right behind her head, signifying her divine nature, and just the overall tranquil majesty of the central figure. Before we even read a single word of the text beside her, the visual language is already speaking volumes about reverence, peace, and enlightenment. Moving on to section 2, symbols of divine wisdom, examining the iconography of knowledge. Before we actually tackle the text on the right, let's break down the specific items this figure is surrounded by, because every single object here has a distinct purpose. First up, the most prominent object, the Veena. Fun fact, this is actually one of the oldest stringed instruments in recorded history. Second, we've got the open book resting gracefully in her other hand, representing sacred texts or the Vedas. Third, look at that massive white lotus she's sitting on, plus the other lotuses scattered in the water. And finally, those graceful swans gliding through the water in the foreground. Each one of these physical items represents a very specific facet of art, purity, and intellect. Now, what's really fascinating about this depiction is the positioning of her hands. Look closely at this. She's plucking the strings of the Veena while simultaneously holding that open book. This isn't just some random artistic choice. It's actually a super powerful visual statement. It tells us that this deity is the master of both the creative arts, represented by the music of the Veena, and academic or spiritual intellect, represented by the literature of the book. Art and intellect are just perfectly balanced right there in her grasp. So let's move our eyes down to the lower portion of the image and see how this builds our understanding. Notice the natural, pure elements that are anchoring this divine figure to the water. That giant white lotus base isn't just a place to sit. It's a universal symbol of rising pure and untainted above the murky waters of ignorance. And those serene swans beside her? Well, in this tradition, swans actually represent the ability to discriminate between good and evil, truth and illusion. It is just a beautifully grounded scene of utter purity. Which brings us to section 3, decoding the ancient mantras. How the text mirrors the art. Okay, now we're going to shift our focus over to the right side of the image, to that really elegant Devanagari script. That's the traditional alphabet used for Sanskrit. Right at the top, we see this large golden headline that reads Saraswati Mantra. It's totally key to establish exactly what this block of beautiful script represents. You see, a mantra is a sacred utterance, a sound, or a group of words that's believed to have real psychological and spiritual power. So this isn't just background text thrown in to fill empty space on the canvas. It's literally the soul of the artwork we're looking at. And guys, here is the true aha moment of our explainer today. When we actually translate the main verse of that script, here's what it says. Who is adorned in white garments? Whose hands are adorned with the Veena? Who is seated on a white lotus? I mean, look at that. The ancient poetry is acting as a literal, descriptive blueprint for the painting. The artist didn't just invent a cool scene, they visually manifested the exact words of the ancient text. And this beautifully illustrates that direct connection. Over on the left, we've got the specific Sanskrit phrase straight from the text, Yashweta Padma Asana. And on the right, the English translation, who is seated on a white lotus. This specific piece of the script perfectly maps to the visual of that giant lotus we were analyzing just a few moments ago. The text and the art are locked in this perfect, continuous loop of meaning. It's just brilliant. So the crucial question here is, what's the ultimate purpose of all this? Well, if we look at the final line of that middle verse, we find our answer. It translates to, may that Goddess Saraswati protect me and completely remove my ignorance. That means the ultimate purpose of this incredibly beautiful imagery, the music, the books, the swans, the text itself, it's not just aesthetic, it's deeply functional. It's literally meant to be a tool for removing lethargy and ignorance from the human mind. All right, let's look at Section 4, the ultimate request, a step-by-step invocation. If we look down at the very bottom text of the image, we find a really clear three-part sequential request. It reads, Vidyam Dehi, Buddhim Dehi, Madam Dehi. Let's break that down because it's fascinating. Step 1 is Vidyam Dehi, which means give knowledge, like the raw acquisition of information. Step 2 is Buddhim Dehi, meaning give intellect, which is the processing power you need to actually understand that information. And then step 3 is Madam Dehi, meaning give wisdom, that higher ability to retain and apply that intellect in a righteous way. It shows this highly structured, completely logical way that the practitioner is asking for progressive mental clarity. Let's bring this explainer full circle and just take in the complete image one last time. It truly is a perfect, harmonious blend of visual reverence and textual invocation. Now that you fully understand both the visual iconography, the lotus, the swans, the Veena, the book, and its literal translation, the removal of ignorance, that step-by-step request for knowledge, intellect, and wisdom, this image completely transforms, doesn't it? It goes from being just a pretty picture to a profound, deeply readable document. I want to leave you with a thought to carry with you today. Seeing how deliberately and honestly how beautifully this ancient culture structured their pursuit of clarity and wisdom, I have to ask, how do you pursue and invite knowledge into your own life? Do you have your own rituals, your own structures, or maybe your own inspirations that help clear away the ignorance and bring in the light? Something to chew on. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating intersection of art and text with me today. Stay curious, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.